We all just kind of accept that gravity is this, physical absolute that governs the universe. Like you drop an apple, it falls. A planet gets massive enough, it pulls smaller objects into orbit.
Right. It's just how things work.
Exactly. And the exact same invisible mechanism that dictates your everyday life scales up to control, well, the most complex systems imaginable. It's clean, it's predictable, and it is entirely impersonal.
Which is comforting in a way, you know?
Yeah, totally. But today, we are jumping into a deep dive that asks you to imagine a world where human emotion operates with that exact same level of inescapable physical certainty.
Yeah, this is a really, really wild
It
premise.
really is. We are exploring a fascinating 2023 essay by an author named Shufeng, and it's titled Forgetting Gratitude Will Lead to Being Lost. And his central thesis is that a simple, everyday emotion, like just saying thank you, is not just some polite social custom.
No, not at all.
He argues it is a functional law of the universe, like capable of explaining everything from your personal happiness to the sudden catastrophic collapse of global superpowers.
Which is an incredibly ambitious framework, to say the least. I mean, the text begins as this deeply peaceful, almost spiritual reflection on our relationship with nature, but it does not stay there.
No, it takes a hard left turn.
Yeah, a really sharp, surprising pivot into highly charged geopolitical commentary. He pulls in real-world examples like Zimbabwe, Venezuela, China, and the United States.
And just to set the stage for you listening, operating strictly within the author's philosophical framework today, we are going to trace this incredibly unique lens to see exactly how he builds his case.
Right, we're just mapping out his logic.
Exactly. We are examining his claims and his interpretations of history to understand how he links personal morality to international relations. And I want to be super clear up front. We are not endorsing these viewpoints or, taking political sides or validating his historical analysis. We are simply unpacking his framework.
Because it is a wild premise,
Yeah.
mapping the emotions of a single person onto the maneuvering of entire nations.
Okay, let's unpack this. Sweffing starts with the most fundamental baseline possible, which is the natural world.
Right, he goes right to the simple things.
Yeah, he asks the reader to consider moments of simple beauty, like when the warm sun shines, when you look up at a clear blue sky, or, you hear birds chirping, frogs croaking, or see a flock of geese flying overhead.
Just everyday nature stuff.
Yeah, and he asks if a sense of gratitude arises spontaneously in those moments.
And for Sweffing, noticing those things isn't just a pleasant mindfulness exercise. Like, it's not just about taking a deep breath.
Right.
He posits that feeling gratitude toward the creator, or even just toward nature itself, acts as a functional mechanism. He actually describes it as a pure cleansing of the soul.
A cleansing of the soul. That's a strong phrase.
It is. And without that act of appreciation, he claims you simply cannot experience the extreme joy and satisfaction that gratitude is supposed to unlock. It's really the first gear in his machine.
So bringing that concept down from the cosmos and right into the living room, he applies this exact same gear to the family dynamic.
Oh yeah, he goes right for the parents.
He does. He focuses on parents and points out that regardless of whether they are incredibly wealthy or struggling to get by, whether they are highly educated or not, they pour this continuous, heavy stream of care into their children.
It's a massive investment.
Through infancy, childhood, youth, it is a relentless output of energy and resources.
And that universal baseline of parental sacrifice is what he uses to draw a very hard moral line.
How so?
Well, he observes how easily people forget that lifelong kindness the moment a parent goes against their wishes.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Like, a child might use a single disagreement or just one moment of friction to mentally wipe out decades of care, and his judgment on that behavior is severe. He states flat out that forgetting this fundamental kindness means you have, quote, failed as a human being.
Wow. Failed as a human being. Let's visualize that dynamic because it really highlights the core of his argument.
Okay, let's do it.
Imagine your relationship with your parents is a long-term bank account.
Right like this.
For 20 years, they have been making continuous daily deposits. Food, shelter, attention, patience. The account is just overflowing with capital.
Right, huge balance.
Then, one day, they make a single withdrawal. They say no to something you want, or they give you advice you fundamentally disagree with.
Which happens to literally everyone.
Exactly. And using that one withdrawal to declare absolute moral bankruptcy on the entire 20-year relationship isn't just petty to him. In his view, it severs your connection to humanity itself. It cuts off what he calls the flow of blessings.
Yeah, and that phrase is key.
So I have to ask, is the author treating gratitude just as a nice emotional state? Or is he describing it more like a functional law of the universe?
He genuinely treats it like a physical law of cause and effect.
Really?
Yeah, in his framework, a grateful heart is an active tool that clears obstacles from your path. That's the flow of blessings he talks about. Losing your sense of gratitude actively cuts off that flow.
So there are immediate consequences.
Oh, absolutely. It's a guarantee that once gratitude is abandoned, your journey immediately becomes chaotic. You will face continuous setbacks. Just as ignoring gravity will result in you, hitting the ground, ignoring gratitude will result in a life of friction and hardship.
Okay, so if gratitude is an unbreakable law, it's easy to see how it functions when someone gives you everything, like a parent.
Right, that's the easy example.
But the real stress test of this theory is how it holds up with someone who owes you absolutely nothing.
Stepping outside the family home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How does this mechanic apply to friends, acquaintances, or even total strangers?
This is where the essay shifts into interpersonal mechanics. Shufeng bases this next step on his claim of over 60 years of interacting with people, observing this recurring pattern.
60 years is a lot of data.
It is. And he concludes that the vast majority of conflicts, distress, and pain between individuals stem entirely from a deficit of gratitude.
The deficit of gratitude.
Yeah. And to illustrate the mechanics of this, he introduces a hypothetical scenario featuring two characters, Zhang San and Li Sai.
And the dynamic between these two is fascinating.
It really is the core of his social theory.
So Zhang San is the helper in this scenario. He selflessly provides aid to Li Si many times over the years. He is a super reliable source of support.
A great friend to have.
But eventually, Zhang San refuses a single request. And suddenly, Li Si flips the script entirely.
Completely turns on him.
He abandons any memory of the past help, gets angry, initiates an argument, and resorts to offensive speech.
And looking at Lucy's reaction, the author issues total condemnation.
Oh, he does not hold back.
Not at all. Lucy is the ultimate ungrateful person because he is actively repaying kindness with enmity. He has completely erased the baseline of good that Zhang San established over years of friendship purely because of a momentary denial.
And in stark contrast to Li Si, Wei Feng shares his own personal metric for handling these situations. And I gotta say, it is an extreme standard.
It's intense.
He states that if someone does him a small favor or helps him just one time, he is willing to joyfully accept a refusal or even an outright insult from them 10 times.
A 10-to-1 ratio.
A 10-to-1 ratio. He refuses to forget that initial kindness. Now, wait a minute. Accepting 10 insults for one small favor, isn't that essentially asking people to be a doormat?
It definitely sounds like it at first.
I mean, where is the line between having a grateful heart and simply allowing people to walk all over you?
What's fascinating here is that Shifeng doesn't view this 10-to-1 ratio as submission or weakness at all.
Really? How does he justify it?
Well, if we dig into the underlying logic, it's actually a highly strategic, incredibly pragmatic survival mechanism.
Ah.
Yeah, it's about long-term resource management in the journey of life.
Okay, so he isn't just turning the other cheek for the sake of being noble. He is playing a longer game.
Precisely. The author argues that if you actively train yourself to only remember the good someone has done for you, and you treat them with respect, regardless of their current mood or, a momentary refusal, you become a safe investment.
Safe investment. I like that.
Yeah, people will always be willing to help you when you face real adversity because they know their kindness will be banked, not forgotten.
And that makes perfect sense when you look at the inverse.
With Lisi.
Right. If Lisi throws a tantrum and hurls insults over one single refusal, no one else is ever going to step up to help him.
Yeah.
The community watches that happen and realizes that the minute they stop giving Lisi what he wants, he will turn on them too.
He becomes a toxic investment.
Exactly.
And the author explicitly poses this question, like, if we harm the people who have benefited us, will anyone around us lend a helping hand when we hit a wall?
Probably not.
Right. The consequence of forgetting gratitude, according to the essay, is that you become increasingly isolated. You become unwelcome. And Su Feng uses a very specific recurring phrase to describe this outcome. He says your path will become narrower.
A narrowing path. That is a brilliant visual representation of losing social capital.
It's very evocative.
If you are ungrateful, doors literally close. Relationships sever. Opportunities vanish. Your world shrinks inward until you are trapped in a narrow hallway of your own making, completely alone.
It is a highly compelling psychological and social model for how an isolated individual creates their own misery.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh yeah, the big leap.
The big leap. Because the author does not stop at the psychology of the individual. He takes this concept of the narrowing path and makes a massive, unexpected jump. He takes the exact interpersonal rule governing the dynamic of Zansan and Li Si and applies it to entire nations and global macroeconomic systems.
Yeah, the essay shifts dramatically from personal philosophy into a highly specific geopolitical lens.
Quite the transition.
And he begins this macroanalysis by focusing on a country he knows intimately, Zimbabwe.
Which is important to note, right? He mentions in the text that he lived in Zimbabwe for 16 full years.
That's a huge chunk of time.
Exactly. Meaning he isn't just pointing at a map to make a theoretical point. He has a deep sensory connection to the location and witnessed its trajectory firsthand.
He was there for the changes.
Yeah. And he describes what the country used to be like, calling it the breadbasket of southern Africa. He details its pleasant climate, its beautiful natural environment, and its incredibly rich tourism resources. He really paints a picture of a nation characterized by wealth and abundance.
Yet today, as he points out, Zimbabwe is recognized globally as one of the poorest countries in the world.
It's a tragic shift.
It is. And the author sets out to explain how such a dramatic, devastating fall from grace occurred.
And his diagnosis is where the scale of his theory really shows itself.
Big time.
Because he doesn't blame complex global supply chain disruptions. He doesn't point to post-colonial structural deficits or the nuances of international trade laws.
None of the usual suspects.
Right. He places the blame entirely on a national failure of gratitude. Specifically, he focuses on the forcible seizure of 4,000 white-owned farms without compensation, an event that drove those farmers away from their land.
Yeah, that's his focal point.
He frames this deeply complex, historically loaded geopolitical event as the ultimate macro version of Li Si turning on Zhang San. And again, just to remind you listening, we are just exploring his framework here, not validating this historical claim.
Right. Right, because it is a highly controversial lens to view such a complex geopolitical crisis through. But if we follow his logic, he argues that this specific action of seizing the farms led directly to a systemic crisis.
A national narrowing path.
Exactly. He points to the massive outflow of talent and capital, noting that within just a few years, the country's currency completely collapsed.
The sheer audacity of the argument is striking.
It's incredibly bold.
To take chaotic, multi-layered historical events and boil them down to a simple moral failure. The people of Zimbabwe, in his view, failed to show gratitude for the contributions of those farms and instead repaid kindness with animosity.
And because they broke the fundamental law of gratitude, the exact same karmic consequence that applies to an ungrateful friend applied to the nation.
Wow.
Yeah, Zimbabwe's path narrowed. The flow of blessings was severed, and the immediate result was disorder, capital flight, and extreme poverty. In his worldview, a nation is just a person scaled up.
A nation is just a person scaled up.
Right. The laws of physics don't change just because the object gets bigger.
Man, given how he views the physics of this, I imagine he doesn't bring up Zimbabwe just as an isolated history lesson.
Oh, definitely not.
He's establishing a precedent, right, to set up a much larger ticking clock warning regarding a conflict happening right now on the global stage.
Yeah, the historical example of Zimbabwe is merely the prologue for him. The main event, and the true focus of his warning, is the current relationship between the United States and China.
Diving into the climax of the essay, Schwiffing critiques a narrative he sees as highly prevalent in modern China.
A very specific narrative.
He sees a narrative that labels the United States as a hegemonic, assertive bully. To highlight this, he specifically quotes a phrase that suggests the depth of this hostility, and the quote is,
I know the one.
yeah, the intention of the American imperialism to make us perish never dies.
Which is a heavy statement. It establishes a baseline assumption of pure antagonism for international relations.
Very adversarial.
Yeah, it assumes the other party is always out to destroy you.
It is the ultimate Li Si mindset on a national scale. But Shui Feng argues the exact opposite of that quote.
Completely flips it.
He claims that if you look objectively at China's history, there are actually very few instances of the United States bullying China. Instead, he sees countless examples of the United States offering assistance.
Right. He views the historical relationship through the lens of Zhang San continuously helping Li Si.
And operating from the premise that the U.S. has historically acted as the benefactor, he issues a stark and specific warning.
A very specific timeline, too.
Yeah. He asks what will happen to China if it continues to display ingratitude. His conclusion is that if China continues to criticize the United States, utilizing hostile rhetoric and constantly seeking confrontation instead of showing gratitude for past assistance, the international community will react exactly like Li Xi's friends.
The support will just stop.
The support will stop, and he even puts a timer on the consequences, predicting that within 10 years, China may very well follow in the exact footsteps of Zimbabwe and Venezuela.
10 years.
So what does this all mean? I mean, how are you, the listener, supposed to digest such a massive, politically explosive prediction? He is essentially stating that the fate of the global economy, the prosperity of billions of citizens, and the balance of world power are all entirely dependent on the kindergarten concept of saying thank you.
It sounds absurd when you phrase it like that, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, we see the crystallization of his ultimate thesis.
Okay, lay it out.
What he is trying to tell us is that scale is an illusion.
Scale is an illusion.
Yes. The laws governing interaction do not change whether you are looking at a microscope or a telescope. Whether you are an individual navigating a friendship, a family member dealing with your parents, or a sovereign country navigating international trade and diplomacy, the fundamental functional law is identical.
It's all the same gear.
All the same gear. Remembering gratitude widens the path. It ensures that individuals maintain their support networks and nations maintain their economic prosperity.
And forgetting gratitude ensures the path narrows.
Without fail.
It brings isolation and setbacks for the individual, and it pushes an entire nation toward economic collapse and disaster.
In his view, there is no escaping this dynamic. Regardless of how one views his specific political commentary on the U.S. and China, the sheer consistency of his framework is what makes the essay so thought-provoking.
It really is consistent.
He genuinely believes he has isolated the hidden mechanism that drives human destiny at every single level of existence.
It is a massive journey to take in one essay. I mean, we started this deep dive sitting in a field, simply appreciating the sound of frogs croaking and the sight of a clear blue sky.
Very peaceful beginnings.
Yeah, and from there, we moved into the sanctity of the family home, examining the lifelong debt we owe our parents and the danger of defining a relationship by its single worst moment.
The bank account withdrawal.
Exactly. We navigated the tricky interpersonal parable of Zhang San and Li Xi, debating the pragmatic survival strategy of swallowing 10 insults just to honor one past favor.
The 10-to-1 ratio.
And before we knew it, we were standing on the global stage, using that exact same logic to analyze the collapse of Zimbabwe's currency, and staring down a 10-year ticking clock on the diplomatic relationship between the U.S. and China.
It is a unified theory of gratitude, a framework that outright refuses to separate the emotional state of a single human being from the macroeconomic maneuvering of superpowers.
Which leaves us with a really fascinating new angle to ponder.
Where does this leave us today?
Well, if we entertain Zhu Feng's premise for a moment, if gratitude truly is the essential functional currency that keeps both personal relationships healthy and international borders prosperous, what happens to us today?
Right.
What happens in a modern world where our social media algorithms, our 24-hour news cycles, and our political narratives are explicitly designed to reward outrage and grievance instead of thankfulness?
Oh, that is a great point. This raises an important question about the architecture of our society right now.
Totally.
If the system is financially and politically incentivized to highlight the one refusal instead of the 20 favors, are we socially engineering a narrowing path for ourselves?
Can a society deliberately practice macro gratitude, or are we being inherently wired by modern technology to always play the role of the ungrateful friend, burning the bridge the very first time we don't get exactly what we want?
That's the million-dollar question.
It really is. Think back to that falling apple. We accept that gravity pulls us down without us ever having to think about it. But maybe gratitude and the disastrous narrowing of the path that follows when we lose it is a physical law of nature that we actually have to choose to obey. We want to thank you for bringing your curiosity to this deep dive today. Keep asking questions, keep looking for the connections, and we will catch you on the next one.